Good morning and welcome in to our nice and bright and early Monday morning Facebook Live, even if it's not bright and early wherever you are. It looks like the clouds are starting to break up a little bit here in the middle of the UK. My name is Helen Jennings. I'm a Stampin' Up demonstrator, and we have been promised, threatened, I'm not quite sure what the word is this week, with some really high temperatures. So for some of you elsewhere in the world, temperatures of 34 degrees may seem nothing. To us here, it's like, run for the hills, it's going to be hot. What are we going to do? Will we survive? But that's later in the week. I think that's Wednesday. We're due to be having these hot temperatures that apparently Africa have sent our way. Wobbling you about. But for now, it's a little bit cloudy, so quite a breeze. So it's quite a pleasant sort of a morning. And we have lots of things to play with. Morning, Chrissy, or evening from Aussie land. I'm sure temperatures of 34 degrees down there are sort of like a walk in the park, aren't they? But you remember well, I'm sure, the horror of such things when they were forecast. Oh my goodness me. But so yes, as the week goes on, it's going to get hot. But for now, it's quite pleasant. So today, let's think about today. If you want to know what's happening this week in terms of where I am this week, what classes I've got running, I did a lot this week. Lots of exciting things happening. I have just put a post up about come and find out what's happening this week, and I've put a link to today's blog post, which is just that. It's listing all the different things that I am doing this week and all the places that you can come and join me. Obviously, if you're a bit further afield, you're not quite just going to be able to pop in for a card class on Saturday, but you can still come and join me this morning and join me on Thursday for my Facebook Live. So there's always somewhere you can come and play along. Freezing. What's freezing, Chrissy? I bet freezing to you, though, is still sort of quite pleasant for us, isn't it? I expect Australian winters are sort of, like a almost a wishful thinking sort of spring day for us. But yes, so yeah, lots to find out, and do check out my blog. I know I may be harping on about it a little bit on my Facebook page and things, but I have just had it all updated, and I'm trying to get people into the habit of wandering over there and having a look. So my website page is, unsurprisingly, www.Love-a-Duckie.co.uk, and on that page you'll find not only my daily blog, but also my online. You can access my online shop. You can access my calendar with what classes and things are coming up, as well as being able to access catalogues online and all of those sorts of things. So a good place to go and check out. It's also the place you can go and check out if you're interested in becoming a member of my team. And of course, at the moment we have 2 promotions still running till the end of July, so another week and a bit. You can still get your bonus day coupons, so any order you place where you spend £45, you are going to get a £4.50 voucher to spend in August. So that's always worth doing. And then the other offer that's on at the moment is on during the whole of July and the whole of August is if you want to get your starter kit. So your starter kit, you spend £99. And at the moment, normally it's £130 worth of goodies you can choose. At the moment, it's £155 worth of goodies that you can choose and get delivered to you, postage free. A fabulous way to tick some of those things off of your wish list. And then after that, the following month, so if you join in July at the beginning of August, but if you join in August at the beginning of September, you will get a voucher from Stampin' Up worth £8 off another order. And of course, any orders that you place having had your starter kit, you will receive a 20% discount at least, on those orders. So if you have lots of things on your wish list, that definitely is the way to go. And if you fancy having a go at running classes, getting friends together, doing Facebook Lives, having parties, any of those things, then definitely that's the way to go. I'm standing here looking out the window watching some goldfinches bathing in a puddle. We seem to have had quite a little 2 or 3 goldfinches that are visiting us regularly at the moment, so that's very lovely. Sorry, that's a slight aside, but they just caught my eye. But let's bring my eyes back to the catalogue in front of me. What are we supposed to be doing this morning, Helen? Come along, focus. Right, so what bundle are we going to be looking at this week? Well, this week we're going to be looking at the first bundle that is listed in the catalogue, and it's this one here, the Woven Heirlooms bundle. And my bundle index at the front tells me that I will find that bundle on page 13. So let's flip to page 13. And there we do indeed have this bundle. Now, one of the nice things about this bundle, there's lots of nice things about this bundle, but one of the nice things about this bundle is that the DSPs that go with it, and if I just flip this page again, you'll be able to see those sort of here, are all in the in colours. So they are all those pretty peacocks and terracotta tile and seaside spray and rococo rose and purple posy. Those are the colours in those papers, so they are in colour colours for want of another phrase. So they are using all the in colours, so that in itself is really lovely. And the stamp set is has some beautiful sentiments in it, lovely script. Sorry, I've got the door open, so that motorbike sounds as if it's coming through the conservatory. It isn't really, it is outside, I promise. So the script is really lovely, and you've got like these sort of almost grungy type elements that you can add to projects. Hello Sharon, lovely to have you catch us up today. So really lovely. So it is a really lovely stamp set, and sort of the thoughts behind it when it was being designed, from what I can remember, that we were told, if you have a look here, you'll see that you've got this rather nice sort of tasselled rug here, and sort of the weaving in the rug and those sorts of things. It was about sort of those upholstery type fabrics and those colours and weaving and rugs and blankets and those sorts of elements that were the sort of inspiration behind the designs. So they're really lovely, and we'll look at the bundle a little bit more in just a second. But on a Monday morning, as we have been doing, we tend to case one of the samples out of the catalogue. And what do we mean by case? We copy and share everything. So we are going to today have a go at making this little card here. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to have time to make an envelope, and neither have I got enough DSP. When I dragged my DSP out for this pack, I realised I've used quite a lot of it, and I actually don't have a piece big enough to create one of those lovely pocket envelopes. But we will have a go at one of those one day, because they are really lovely. They're sort of long envelopes, and they've sort of got, you know, you attach them with string and things. There's got a little brad in there, can you see? And a circle of card, and it'll have some twine somewhere to sort of hold it down. So yeah, really nice little envelopes. But we're not going to make the envelope, but we are going to have a go at the card, and we will come to that in just a second. But first of all, let's have a little look at what actually you get in the Woven Threads bundle. So the stamp set, as I say, with these really nice scripts and these sort of texturized, almost grungy elements that you get to go with it. Then you get a die and embossing folder bundle. Now these dies look very odd, don't they, to us slightly, but also sort of very plain, and you know, okay. So this one, as the die would suggest, cuts you out a sort of oval frame, and this one cuts you out a rectangular frame. So useful, but not entirely exciting. What makes them exciting, and you're not necessarily going to be able to pick this up, let me just look about and see what other elements of card I've got. Is this going to help? That might help a little bit. Can you see you've got this embossed element in this embossing folder that will actually emboss your rectangle, and then the other one obviously will emboss your oval. So the idea is that these come as a bundle because they work as a bundle. The idea is that you are going to die cut your oval, die cut your rectangle, and then you can emboss them to make some beautiful frames, and they are called the heirloom frames for that very reason. So we're going to have a little go at doing that. We are going to be doing the oval ones, so let me just put the rectangular ones to one side, so we'll be playing with those in a minute. The papers, as I said, my paper is running quite low, but really beautiful. There's the pretty peacock, there's the terracotta tile with a bit of rococo rose sort of tucked in. This is a particularly beautiful one, again in that pretty peacock. There's the rococo rose, and you can see the sort of the idea of the rugs and the upholstery fabrics sort of running through that paper. You can see where that inspiration has come from. Again, really pretty. And that one is just almost like a linen type effect, it almost looks, doesn't it? And there's this one, and that's just got again an almost linen burlappy type effect on the back there. And there's this one in the purple posy, and that again has got sort of hints of rococo rose and terracotta tile and Sahara sand on the back there. So those are the papers. They are really lovely and make fabulous sort of backgrounds to projects. They're not necessarily the sort of papers, perhaps with the exception of this one, that you would use as a focal point. That one you could easily cut out, couldn't you? Actually, that would be quite easy to fussy cut that medallion out of there. But really pretty papers to use as your backgrounds. There is then a pot of sequins in colours to go with it. So as that camera focuses, beautiful little pot of sequins. There they are. We're going to be wanting some of those in a minute. And then there's this woven threads trim, which is really pretty. It looks like a whole little row of hearts going along there. But what you can do, and what we are going to be doing in a minute, is we are going to need a length of this. And excuse me a minute while I just think how much I'm going to want. I would think about like that, because what you can do, I just cut that off and put that to one side. If you take this thread just here and pull it out, we're going to use this thread that I've just pulled out as part of our project in a minute. But what you're left with is tassels. And although we're not using that on our project today, I shall set that to one side, and I think I shall make sure that we have something tassel-y for our projects for Thursday. So you can either have your thread as it is, giving you sort of that almost heart-like effect, or pull out that thread and you've got your tassel trim. Perfect for the edges of boxes and those sorts of things. Morning, Hannah. Right, so let me put those to one side because we're going to come back to those in a minute. Right, let us start on our case, that card that we're casing this morning. So I've started off with a piece of very vanilla thick cardstock that I've created into a C6 card base. So that's a piece of A4 card, cut at 14.9, scored at 10.5. Morning, Wendy. Now I've got a piece of watercolour card. Now I haven't got any of the new Stamping Up watercolour card yet. That is one of the things yet to come in on my wish list. So we're going to have to make do with another piece of watercolour card, but it will give us the same effect, hopefully. I'm sure nowhere near as beautifully as the Stampin' Up card would do, but adequately for our purposes. I've got some white embossing folder and powder. I've got our dies. Excuse me. Oh, I could feel a sneeze coming then. Has it gone away, or is it going to suddenly sneak up on me unawares? For the moment, it has gone away. So let's carry on. Okay, so we're going to need, I have some white embossing powder. I am therefore going to need my Versamark ink. And I've got this long stamp already on my block. Hello Karen, it is lovely ribbon, isn't it? It's beautiful, that trim, and the fact that you can sort of split it and make those tassels is really wonderful. Right, let us ink up our big long grungy threaded image, and we're going to stamp that several times along our cardstock. Now obviously, being Versamark, it is a bit of guessing as to where that has gone, but because it is sort of a grungy effect, we're not worried about it being absolutely precise. Let me just, I think, turn that round will be much easier, Helen. There we go. And let's just put some more right across the top there. So at this stage, I have absolutely no idea. Well, I've got a vague idea where that went and where it didn't. 5:18 on Monday, where you are. Well, we are now, I think, about 8:18 in the morning here. So the other thing I was going to mention, and thank you to our Australian friends, because that reminds me, because I was just seeing a post from one of the Australian demonstrators saying, oh, it's nearly here. What are you excited about seeing in the catalogue? At 8 o'clock our time tomorrow evening, Tuesday evening, we are going to be able to see the new seasonal autumn, winter, Christmassy catalogue online. So that's very exciting. So sort of 36 hours ish to go, and we will be able to see that. So that's really exciting, because to get to see what we're going to be able to play with over Christmas this year. But only demonstrators are going to be able to see that at 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. 5 a.m. on the 24th. Oh, that sounds like 8 p.m. is a much more civilized time, isn't it? I can be sitting down with a cup of tea. So yeah, so not long to go, but only if you are a demonstrator. If you're not a demonstrator, you're not going to be able to see that catalogue at 8 p.m. tomorrow evening, not unless you sort of, you know, stalk a demonstrator and go and sit beside them as they look at it. And then as a demonstrator, equally, I am going to be able to order from that catalogue next week, 1st of August. I am going to be able to order from that catalogue. As a customer, as somebody who's not a demonstrator, you've got to wait until September. So what could you do about that? I wonder. You may have remembered a little while ago I've said Stampin' Up have a wonderful offer on at the moment for people getting their starter kits. So if you make benefit of that offer and get your £99 starter kit and get your £155 worth of free goodies, you too will be able to look at that catalogue at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. But enough excitement. I'm going to put my heat gun on because I need to heat our embossing powder. So this was white embossing powder I used on here. and it's not easy to see it turn. It's not easy for me to see it turn, so I'm sure it's not easy for you to see it turn. But rest assured it is. Now, I'm never an advocate of the wafting of the heat tool. I know some people sort of waft it around. I tend to find it much more efficient. Sort of heat one bit, and as that goes, move it on. Oh, Angie, why has it found you a little bit of time to find me? Hopefully I'm not hiding too much. Right, hopefully that has all turned. It really isn't easy to see. Let me just have it. Let's do the feely test. Yep, that feels nicely embossed. Right, I'm just trying to see Angie's comment. Oh no, I wonder why we weren't coming up on Facebook, Angie. How very. Hi, Karen. Just catching up on comments. Right, okay. So that's a mystery as to why it wasn't coming up on Facebook. Facebook does have a mind of its own, doesn't it? Now, if I had a bottle of re-inker, I would be using some re-inker now. But for those of you that live elsewhere in the world, you may not be aware that we are having trouble over here in Europe. They have brought in some whole new set of rules with customs and things, which meant that all of the re-inkers, all of the glues, everything is having to be relabeled before it can be distributed to us. So there are a lot of things that we are not able at the moment to get our hands on. Tombow, I know. Things like re-inkers. So had I got a re-inker, I'd have used a re-inker. But as of yet, they are on their way. There is a little bit of sign of light at the end of the tunnel, but we haven't got there yet. So I have just put some ink in my lid, and I've added some water to it with an aqua painter, and I'm just going to do a bit of a wash over my card. And obviously where we have got our embossing powder, it will resist the colour, hence why we call it an emboss resist technique. But where the colour, where the embossing powder isn't, we're going to get like these pale blue stripes. Oh, the dog has something to say on this matter. I can only imagine that a neighbouring cat has come into view. Right, so let's just finish. I'm really sorry, I don't know why our broadcast paused there. Possibly because I had a notification come through. My husband helpfully set up a new notification thing on for me, and it looks as if somebody's commented on one of my WhatsApp groups, and it paused the video, so I do apologise. So I have just put a watercolour wash across that, and I'm not sure how well that is showing up because it is actually quite pale, apart from that blob just there. It is quite a sort of subtle effect, but it is really rather pretty. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to give it a bit of a buff across the top just to take any excess ink off the top of the embossed images. But while we're waiting for that to dry, let me pick up my die cutting tool and we will get to work on our frame. Now what I'm going to do, so I'm going to start by cutting out my frame, and you want to do your cutting before you do your embossing, and there's a very simple reason for that, because if you cut after you emboss, you're going to squash your embossing. And we really don't want to do that. So let's die cut our frame. And I will need to die cut. This is the bit where I think, oh, I didn't pick that up. Let me just pick up a little bit of, let me get a sheet of very vanilla cardstock. And let me cut that down, because we're also going to cut a frame out of very vanilla. Not that we want a frame, what we actually want is the bit in the middle, because that's what we're going to use to do our sentiment with. So there's our frame in Seaside Spray, and here comes our frame in Very Vanilla. See, I thought I'd got it all together in my basket, but you can never have it completely all together at 8 o'clock in the morning, can you? And there is our Very Vanilla inner. So we've got a frame in Seaside Spray, we've got the inside of a frame in Very Vanilla, and we're going to use those two to go together. So let's move our die out of the way. Now we're going to emboss our frame. So we have our frame, we have our embossing folder. Now this is really a question of taking your time. This is not something that you want to rush. It is a thick embossing folder, so we are going to need to use just our base plate, and I'm just fiddling around so that I'm happy that this is sitting, and this is where you want to take your time to get this right and to ensure that that is sitting centrally in that frame, so that when you run it through the machine, your embossed image is sitting centrally within that frame. I think that's about right. I'm going to lay that down a second. Don't move, little embossed frame, because the other thing I want to grab, hopefully, if I can see it, is my little embossing mats. This is one of the embossing mats, so they're retired now, but in the catalogue last year we had some embossing mats that you could use for doing your embossing on your doing the embossed elements on your dies, and I'm going to actually use one of those. Stampin' Up have brought out an extra plate, an extra sort of shim that you can use with these thick embossing folders, but as yet I haven't got one of those either. My wish list far outruns my bank balance, so I have to be a little bit patient before I can have everything. But I find that that rubber embossing mat in there tends to do the trick. And when we lift this open, hopefully you'll be able to see that beautiful embossed detail on that frame. They really are quite stunning, very sort of vintagey, very beautiful. So let's take our piece of watercolour card, let's just give it a bit of a buff so that any ink that's sitting on the top of that embossing has now been rubbed off, and the sun is just in the wrong angle, isn't it now? So hopefully you'll be able to see that sort of embossed detail in the back of that watercolour card. So really quite subtle. And what I'm going to do, actually I'm not going to stick that to the card yet, I'm going to put that die in place in a minute, but first we need to stamp our sentiment. So our sentiments is the one that says, wishing you a day of love and joy, and we're going to stamp that in Pretty Peacock ink, which is just here. And then I've also got this little sort of swirly stamp just here, and I'm going to use that and stamp that in terracotta tile on the top and bottom of our little oval. Right, so let's line our oval up and stamp our wishing you a day of love and joy. And then let's open up our terracotta tile. So we're really having a nice play with some of the new ink colours today. But as I said at the beginning, the papers are all using those new ink colours, so they are a perfect way to get playing. So we'll put one of those top and bottom. Let's give our stamps a little bit of a clean with my very well loved Simply Chamois. And let's start to bring this card together. So let's bring back in our thread, and if you remember, this is the thread that we pulled out of the bottom of our woven thread. So we pulled the thread out of the bottom to leave us with the tassel-y effect, but we're just going to use this long thread just here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my frame and these frames are lovely because you've got those raised elements on them. You could then go in with a sponge and some ink and sponge over the top of them and pick out some of that colour if you wanted to sort of make it grungy. But you could also get out your shimmer paints and go over the top of them with your shimmer paints. To pick out those images, softly rub over the top with a Versamark and scatter on some copper or gold or silver. Embossing powder, lots of ways that you could really make the most of those embossed elements on the top of that frame. Right, so I'm going to wrap that round a couple of times. It feels really lovely, this thread that you've pulled out of here. It's not like the linen thread, it's got a very different feel to it. Much more like if you had one of the paper pumpkins. If you had the Shelley paper pumpkin, because of course here, I know for you in Australia around us here, we were very excited by that because that's something that we not really had before. But there was that thread in there and it had that sort of really soft feel to it. It was lovely, that sort of, was it a Calypso coal thread? I can't remember, but it was really lovely. It had a lovely feel to it. This feels very like that. So we have our thread tied round top of our frame, and now I'm going to grab some dimensionals, and somewhere I have some full-size dimensionals rather than mini ones. Let's move that out the way before I stick my finger in it. And we'll put some dimensionals on the back of that. Thank you, Wendy. Hi, Michelle. Right, and let's pop that over the top there. And then we will, that's looking a little bit wonky, isn't it? Well, just goes to show it's handcrafted, not mass produced. There we are, and then we will put some Tombow on the back of our watercolour card and attach that to our very vanilla card base. So looking good. And now we just need a bit of bling on there. So we have our lovely sequins, but we also have our in colour faceted gems that of course are going to go beautifully with this suite because the papers are all in colour and the faceted gems are all in colour. So we're going to use both of those things, the sequins and the gems, and we're going to put a bit of a smattering of blingness on our card. Right, so I have here my wonderful pickup tool that I just absolutely love, but you'll notice I've got a brush on the end. So I was doing some intricate die cutting yesterday and needed my brush. So the brush attachment is new in the annual catalogue, and you get the brush attachment and you get 2 of these sort of foam mats that you put your thing on and rub it, and then all the bits stick to your foam mat ready for you to pop in the bin. So this comes as an attachment, so all you do is unscrew it from the end and there's your brush. So in your box with this you get your 2 foam mats and you get your brush, but of course in order to put my brush in I'd had to unscrew my putty picker-upper, and if we're going to be sticking sequins on this card I need my putty picker-upper. So I have putty picker-upper one end and I have my pokey tool the other. Let's pick up a few of these. I think I'm going to stay with the blues. We'll put a few little blue faceted gems on, and then we will add a few little sequins. Let's have a look. Little spot of Tombow there, and oh, I dropped you. No, I don't think I want you, I want you. Sorry if my head is in the way while I scrabble around in my sequins and decide which colour I want. That one, I think. And, oh, decisions. I might pick a couple up and then glue them on afterwards. And possibly one more for luck. Okay, now let's add some glue for these. We went from a tiny blob that perhaps wasn't quite big enough to an enormous blob, but luckily our sequin's going to sit on the top, so that's okay. A little blob just there. And got more than one sequin there. Let's go with the white one. White pinky shade. And then that one is already stuck on. So there we are, a few little sequins scattered about the place, and I've just realised what I haven't put onto my card. So there was another element that we were supposed to put on to our card. I knew it looked a bit naked, and that was a bit of paper. So let's see if we can, where there's a will there's a way. I'm going to trim this so it's about 4 centimetres. I'm just going to cut a snip of that. So the idea was that this was going to stick under there, but I think where there's a will there's a way. We can get that under there. So the idea would have been that I'd have put a whole strip that went all the way down there. But now we're going to make do and mend. I will tidy that up because that's very wonky. I will have a play with that when we finished and make that a little bit tidier, and then we shall need a little bit that's just going to stick out of the bottom with a bit of a tail on it. So let's create our tail. We may need to move that sequin. And customers look at you aghast because you're able to help them to work round disasters. I often tell them the only reason I know is because I've had to do it. Now what I'm going to do is lift that and turn it round, because the other edge is already a straight edge. And voila, just like that, we have managed, let's put our little sequin back, we've managed to put our strip of paper behind. There we go. Yeah, I loved my paper pumpkin, Karen. I did hear the other day that getting another one isn't totally off the cards. I think they sold quite well, so I think there certainly is thoughts that they might allow us another one. So here is our card that we were casing. As I said, we've not managed to make a pretty envelope to go with ours, purely because I haven't got enough DSP. I need to order more, but there's our little version of it. So wishing you a day of love and joy. And that is indeed what I'm wishing you. I wish you the rest of the day full of love and joy. So if you're here in the UK, you've got the whole day to be filled with love and joy. And for all you lovely people joining us from Australia, you have a lovely, lovely evening. So I'm off to have some breakfast and then get going on the busy jobs of the day. Thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully you'll come back and visit again on Thursday, and we'll catch up with you all soon. Have a lovely week.